Welcome back everyone, all denizens of the Underhive, all scumbags. Very nice opening, I know. Today I'm going to be painting some more wall sections from my Zone Mortalis board for Necromunda. So I'm painting the wider walls today. So I've already painted the single walls. You've probably seen my Instagram posts. I thought maybe I'll do a how-to guide. Just for a bit of fun. I mean, I'm painting them anyway, so why not show you how I do it. So, just remind you what the single ones look like. So, kind of bright, yet still kind of grubby at the same time. So, painting both sides of these, kind of. So then, that's in the underside bit here that you see when you stack the second layer on, and yeah, just rip through loads of these in one go. Batch painting is always quicker, especially with an airbrush, and you can't go far without some Carl Johnson posters as well, especially ones for Sump City Radio. I'm not endorsed or sponsored or anything by those guys, but please check out the podcasts if you like a bit more narrative fluff and a bit more a realistic feel to Necromunda. Especially, they make their own characters. It's just funny. It's funny. It makes you really feel like their Underhive is alive. And it rhymes. So please check them out. Obviously their other podcasts are available. I might even do a video on my favourite podcasts for Necromunda, because I've already done a video on my favourite YouTube channels for Necromunda, so I could do that in future. Just basically a bit of a chinwag, bit of a gas. You're probably tired of my voice already, but let's crack on. So where do I begin? Like any good terrain project, have a nice primer. I generally prime most of my stuff with black paint, purely because I like to give myself some shadows with some zenithal. But if I was to chip anything up, like my tiles that I've painted previously, I generally use a rattle can, a nice primer of a chocolatey brown. I have done a video before on my Necromunda tiles, so my tiles like this, and you can see where it's chipping like hell. That's the idea. That was done with a brown rattle can. But in this case, I'm going to grab a load of these, probably do them in batches of 6, and you don't need to see me paint something with a rattle can, but I'm going to prime all of these with a black paint. Obviously, loads of different companies out there. Army Painter. I'm currently using a nice range by TC Combat. They've got quite nice colours for quite an affordable price, plus they're local to me, down in Newquay. So yeah, crack out your favourite priming paint and just rip through a load of these. Don't have to go dark. I go dark because I like to make nice contrasts and nice shadows with a bit of zenithal. So this is how I paint mine. Okay, so that's the black primer I used. I'm not going to bother painting the inside. And like I said previously, a nice light zenithal over the top. So this is actually a zenithal primer as well. So I've got a nice airbrush light primer, and all I'm going to do is just the top side, nice and bright there, mainly because I like the bottom to be grubby, well used, and also the lights are on the top as well. So when it comes to painting the lights, I'm just going to make them look not bright and neon, because this is going to be quite a bright piece of terrain in a way, but I want it to look like a sickly green light in the hive. So the lights haven't been well maintained, they certainly haven't been cleaned, and it's going to give like a dingy light to the hive. Some lights I will make nice and bright, but generally I do that on darker pieces of terrain to the Underhive. When it's a light piece of terrain, I like a nice dark light, if that makes sense. Like these lights I will probably make them pop and be nice and bright because it's a warning light. I wonder what a warning light would signal in the underhive. If something's gone wrong in the underhive, to justify a warning light, it must be pretty damn wrong. Right, so I'm going to rinse and repeat. I'm actually going to do 7 at one time because it's just easier to rip through that amount of flame. So, really strong on the top bit, and then feather it down probably about 1/3. So, nice and thick, thinning it out maybe about 1/3. So, rinse and repeat on all of them, and I might even hit the very, very top line a bit brighter again once it's dry. So for those who don't know, a zenithal is basically a pre-shade. So when you put your thin-ish top coat on, it should be brighter where you've hit with the zenithal. In my case, this very light grey than it is at the bottom. In this case, it'd be black underneath. So remember to do the tops. Obviously these are all being primed as well. So basically what I'm going to do is hit these bits, and that's it, because when I paint it blue, that's going to be brighter than the middle, and definitely brighter than underneath. I'll hit a little bit on the edges as well, like so. Rinse and repeat, with loads of them. Just a bit there. Okay. Lighter on the side, then on the top, because that's where the lighting is going to be from above. An airbrush really does speed this up, but of course you can use a good old-fashioned hairy brush, but this is just the way I do it. Especially when you have loads and loads and loads of pieces of terrain from Necromunda, and you want to rip through the whole lot. Damn, rubber gloves.
Yes, master. Help me.
Okay, so now it's time to put down some base coats. So I'm going to start with my blue because it's the most prominent colour. So make sure it's spraying okay. Lovely. And then a couple of nice thin coats to really show off the zenithal. So you can see straight away that there's like a darker blue as well as a lighter blue coming through. So nice and bright baby blue, which I generally go slightly brighter with initially, because once you put the weathering down, so your enamel washes, it will calm down quite a bit. So I'm going to paint the majority off the top side, like so, while holding it, and do the rest like that. So I'll turn the light down a little bit, I think it's a bit too bright. I'll show you again with the light off. So basically I'm holding it by the pipes because that's the bit that I'm going to be painting silver later on. I will give the underside a bit of a dusting later on, but it's not really that anything that sees the light of day. So just like that. Really basic. Hopefully if the coat is light enough, the zenithal will really show off. So should, when it dries, have a darker bit of blue here and here than this bit here in the middle. So rinse and repeat, lots to cover. The same for the walls, so just nice and light over the whole thing. Hopefully the zenithal comes out quite nicely. So it should be darker near the bottom. Speaking of which, I put a light coating on there as well. So if it's knocked over, at least you can see it's been painted. That's purely for my own use because I paint the bottom of tanks for like 40k and things like that, and sometimes you turn a tank over and it's not painted underneath. A little part of me dies. So it's a little bugbear I have, so please, don't judge me too hard. So yeah, so I'm just going to paint the whole thing and rinse and repeat with 7 more. Next thing I do is have a slightly lighter blue, and I hit the centre of these bits, like that, just to make sure that the edges are darker and the centres are even brighter again. So rinse and repeat on all 7, and also I do the same thing to the columns. So where I would do the brightness is near the top, just to make sure you know the top is even brighter. Just gives it a little bit more of a contrast. Probably can't notice much of a difference, but then maybe go a bit brighter, a bit more of a contrast, really push it, and really make more of a difference. Be a bit more daring, a bit more eye-catching, even in Underhive. Let's go bright before we go dinge, I suppose. Okay, so once all the blues are dry, so I say all the blues are the 2 different colour blues that you used, it does look darker there, slightly lighter, and even lighter again there, and that's what I was after. Get yourself your finest metallic. I like a nice grubby metallic initially, and then when I put this dirty wash over the whole thing and clean it back, I then want edge highlight with a brighter metallic. So you could go with some brasses. Me, I'm going for some good old-fashioned GW lead belcher, because it's a fairly dark metal, especially once you put the grubby stuff over the top of it, and then edge highlight with some Stormhost silver. If you're doing massive batches and you don't want to edge highlight, that's fine, but I just like to, you could even dry brush lightly over some edges and bring it back a bit. But this is the soul destroying, the back breaking bit. I'm really selling it, aren't I? So you've done your airbrushing, which saves a lot of time. Now you're doing your basic block colours that you have to do with an actual hairy brush, because as fairly accurate I am with an airbrush, I don't think I'll be able to do this as neat as I would like. So hairy brush time, doing all the metallics in a true Blue Peter fashion. For those who remember Blue Peter, here's one I prepared earlier. So banging out all 7 of these, and then when that's dry, I'll put some detail there. So probably a little red bit on the gauge there, maybe a white background. Ready for the grubbiness. So these are pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Whereas the walls, I will paint the main colour here, which I'm doing like a bit of a khaki, tanny colour. When that's done, I will then airbrush the centre a lighter colour, just to make it pop a little bit more, like I did there. And then I will fill in the metallics, so something like that. And the vent there, just picking out a few bits of detail, don't want it too basic. And then I will start making this all nice and grubby, and then I'll hit the lights last. So that's the order I'm going to do things. So I have started doing the columns and the walls. Good old soul destroying work. So the first coat, nice thin coat. Second coat will cover it a lot nicer. Once again, you could use an airbrush if you're feeling very accurate. I just want to keep it semi-tidy. After 2 coats, we'll see what it looks like. But first, I suggest you put a nice podcast on, or maybe some nice ambient music. For me, personally, today, I'm going to go with some not very grimdark, not very 40k. I'm going to hit some Skyrim ambient music. And my dog is barking in the background, which will also help me keep sane, right? Sure. So I'm going to blast a slightly lighter colour in the centre, so it's slightly more eye-catching, like so. It's a bit more of a contrast. You can go as bright as you want, but this will calm down a little bit once all the weathering is on. So keep hitting the centres. Like so. Doesn't look too bad. I did the exact same thing with my tiles when I painted my Zone Mortalis tiles, and a little bit of contrast really does help. Once you put that weathering on there, it really does. So rinse and repeat. So next comes the main detail stage. So I'm not going to put massive amounts of detail on this, because if you put let's say 4 pieces of detail in each bit, as in that's a piece of detail in my mind, and that, and that. So this is 3 pieces. You've got to do 3 bits on each one. So if you're doing 20 wall sections, that is a lot of bits. So keep your detail to a minimum is my personal advice. But it's totally up to you. Obviously, the more you add, the more realistic it will look, I guess. But yeah, I'm just going to add that. And then when it comes to the weathering, obviously I'm going to clean everything up. And that's the next stage. That's the fun bit. So I have, on those that have a flashing beacon on the side, a flashing warning light, just done a zenithal again with white on the top. But I will use my AK Streak and Grime, thin it out a little bit with thinners, and paint each one with an airbrush. Man, the airbrush saves so much time, it's unreal. You could rip out, because I'm doing 7 of these, you could rip out 7 of these in a day. Fairly casual, like I said, listening to a podcast or something in the background with an airbrush, just blasting them away. So hit it with the Streak and Grime, and then clean it up with a cotton wool pad and a little bit of white spirit, which I will show you on camera in a minute. Then the lights afterwards to really make it pop. So you've got the grimy, grubby texture, and then a light to make it pop a little bit more. But like I said, I like to use bright colours for my walls, the blue and the cream. It's a nod basically to the 90s style cardboard terrain from N95 Necromunda, which was this kind of blue and a grey. But I thought the grey might have been a bit too boring, so I've just upped it with an off cream, a magnolia if you will. So yep, mixing up a batch of the Streak and Grime and blasting each one. Okay, as the airbrush does its thing, also I might add, I did add a little bit of detail to the top pieces. So you can see that gauge there. It's got the white for the background and the red for the actual needle itself. So going to be fairly liberal with this. Just going to go like that. No particular pattern. Just get it nasty and dirty. I am, like I said, going to thin out the Streak and Grime a little bit. I'm also wearing gloves because I'm messy. The top bits I'm going to wipe off mostly, and it's just the grimy stuff on the inside I really want. So nice and liberal. Really want some of them to be really dirty. They're all going to be fairly dirty, but I don't want it to be too uniform. This is the underhive. So definitely the bits in the middle. I'm going to get the recesses of those rivety bits. There's a bit underneath. So you can do it in 2 lots if necessary. So top and below. But yeah, fairly happy with that. And I will show you what I'll do with the top. Just knock these out of the way. And the same thing. But with these, I'm going to do it more grubby on the bottom than I am at the top. And then just maybe fade a little bit on the top as well. So the opposite of the Zenithal when I first started. So really thick in the bottom, working my way to lighter on the top. It's really shiny, so on camera it's not looking great, is it? Thick on the bottom, lighter on the top. Just how I like it. Okay, so once the white spirit and the streak and grime mix is dried, which can be sped up, that process can be sped up with a hairdryer. I like to use some cotton wool pads, some pads like this. Just give them a little bit of a soak with some white spirit, and you can take off as much or as little of the streak and grime as you want. So I'll just start running along the top. Don't want to take off too much, still want to leave it kind of grubby, and just obviously on the raised areas. You can still see the rivets and any damage, like so, like that, and maybe a little bit off the pipes, just the top, not too much. I want to leave that nice and dirty. Just like that. Don't have to rub hard at all. Let that dry. Once again, that could be sped up with the hairdryer. Yes, I own a hairdryer. No, I don't own hair. It's purely for the hobby. Right, and then obviously rinse and repeat on that. Do the same with this. The only difference is drag it down if you can to make it look like you've got gravity helping the muck running down with moisture or whatever is in your hive. Probably best not to ask what that is. Once again, don't take off too much. There's one side, there's the other. I like to leave it kind of like that so it looks like it's streaking off the rivets. If you want to add some rust once this is all done off those rivets, rather than streaking grime, you can use rust streaks. It's always quite nice. Bit of extra detail. But that's basically all you have to do. Super fast, super easy, and you don't have to use any effort at all. You're not putting any force in, you're just gently wiping it down, dragging it downwards, always dragging it downwards. Just like that. Looking pretty good. So I've got loads of this to do, it shouldn't take very long. And now you have to decide if you want, personally, your lights to be on or off on these tiles. I want them on, but I want like a dingy, dirty colour, like I said at the beginning of the video. So I've hit the lights with an off-white, pretty much a grey. And then I'm going to hit the centre with a brilliant white. So when I put the sickly green glow on it, it should look like the middle of it is lit up. So I'm going to do that on all of them. Like I said before, airbrush really helps speed things up. So what I've done is use some Athonian camo shade, because like I said, I wanted the lights to be a bit dingy, a bit dirty. Obviously make it as dirty as you want. How you could even make it like really neon fluorescent colours if you want to, but I just want my hive to be originally painted fairly bright and just get dingy over time. I have seen a lot of tables that are incredibly rusty. If that's the feel you want to go with, that's great. But I just want to go with dinge because I want someone to see from the other side of the room, wow, that's a bright table, and walk over to it and then see how much dirt's on it. Whereas if you see rust from a distance, it just kind of gets blended in a little bit. So maybe add a little bit of rust here and there, but don't swamp your thing in rust. So I've done a bit of object source lighting there. A little bit of rust streaking here and there. Like I I said I was going to, off the rivets with, rather than the streak and grime, the rust streaks just off the rivet, and just drag it down following gravity, so you can see the watermarks near rusty rivets. So that's the basic. I'm going to add my top now, and I have dry brushed with that brighter silver, like I said, just to make the pipes pop a little bit. But why stop there? Because there's so much more you can add. Graffiti. Think of graffiti. Check out some references online. I'm going to draw some freehand graffiti on there as well. And do not forget Carl Johnson's stuff. So he's literally got hundreds of posters on his YouTube channel, on his Instagram account. You'll find the link, and I've promoted his stuff before, not because he's asked me to, but I really believe in the stuff he's done is incredible. So loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of posters. Oh, not just that one, not just that one. He has got literal hundreds of posters. If you can't find what you're looking for in your hive, I don't think you can be satisfied, basically. I've just cut out a tequila worm at some stage. I will probably add another one to one of these. So I'm going to put the posters down before I do graffiti, because I want the graffiti to be sprayed over the posters. You don't have to add these. It's purely because I like to make it look like it was more lived in, as well as being dirty. I'm going to go nuts. I'm going to put loads of posters on these, and then I'm going to take a picture when this is finally done. So that's what I've done with my wall sections, but obviously you can add more posters, less posters, more grime, less grime, lots and lots of rust. It's totally up to you. Weird and wonderful graffiti. Apparently, all hail destroyer worlds. It's a banana. They've probably never seen a banana. Just go random and weird, and it's Necromunda, baby. Just go as dirty and odd and messed up as you would like. So, little bloody handprints, posters, you name it, whatever you want. This is basically how I do my terrain, and now I'm committed. I've got to paint 6 packets of tiles and God knows how many columns and walls. I've done it to myself, people. So enjoy me on my crazy ride, and hopefully I'll finish it all maybe by the end of the year, and I'll get some battle reports filmed and underneath my belt. I am on my 2nd campaign ever. If you've been watching any of my Necromunda painting videos, I always, not brag, but mention, that's right people, not bragging, mention that my Goliath are doing really well. Probably will be playing Goliath in the next campaign. A, because I want to mix it up a bit, and B, I don't want people thinking they're broken as hell, because if I win 2 campaigns, both of which are Goliath, I'm saying it's down to my skill as a tactician. Nothing to do with the fact that Goliath are really good. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video, guys. And hopefully you've seen some tips and tricks, or at least got some ideas for my random waffling on. Okay, well, stay safe, you wonderful people. Catch you next time in the Underhive.